welcome back to the Motorcyclist Journey. I'm glad you're joining me today. As you can see, I'm actually out and mobile, which is something that really hasn't happened in the last month. Earlier this week, I was able to get rid of the long arm cast that was kind of preventing me from doing any exercising. You know, it gets hot and sweaty and sticky, and it's kind of hard to get clean when you can't get anything in there. But got back to the short brace, and back to the short brace on the other hand, which we'll be dealing with getting repaired December 17th. So more on that later. But anyway, the good news is I can get out, get some exercise, and do a little walking, get a couple miles in today. The next interview. Today we'll be talking with Chad Warner. Chad Warner from, former board member with BMW MOA. He is the founder and continues to be the host for the Waylon Waynes weekend. That is a 4-day rally, so I'm not sure why they call it a weekend, but it's all in the name. Anyway, Chad is also spearheading the efforts on the BMW and the Beamer Bonanza giveaway, Beamer Bonanza sweepstakes this year, which benefits the MOA Foundation, but even more so than that is a big benefit for the Motorcycle Relief Project. So we'll get into that a little bit with Chad here in just a little while. The other thing Chad just announced is he is going to do the West Coast Tour Tech Rally next year, but in getting there, he is doing the Trans-America Trail. So if you're familiar with Chad, you know he has done all of the BDRs, and he tends to do a large chunk of them back to back to back. So it'll be interesting to see what his plans are and hear what his plans are for the Trans-American Trail over. Yeah, today we're with Chad Warner. And kind of as I started with Reese the other day, if I've got the list right, past board member for BMW MOA.
Yeah.
One of the founders and still the host of the Waylon Waynes weekend.
Yep.
Which I'm trying to figure out how it's a 4-day event and you people convince
Well,
their wives, their spouses, they convince their spouses that it's a weekend. Your BDR challenge that you've done over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And if I read it right, you're doing the Transatlantic Trail this year in June.
Yeah, coming up next year. Yep.
And in between, you do fundraising for the Motorcycle Relief Project.
Yep, I helped them out and raise money through the Ride It Forward charity. Yep.
Right, and the Beamer Bonanza that's going on.
Yeah, the Beamer Bonanza.
So I just wanted to kind of talk today. It's I know you come from a military background. Happy belated birthday to the United States Marine Corps.
Thank you.
And
good for 249.
Yeah, you look great for 204 for almost 250 years old. But kind of how'd you get into riding? Is it something that's been since you were a kid like me? I don't remember ever not being around motorcycles. Or was it more like Reese, who in the 40s decided, hey, I want to start doing this?
Yeah, for me it was growing up. I grew up in Maine on a motocross bike, and my two uncles up in Maine were both racers and regional champions up in Maine. I mean, that's small. So I would get the hand-me-down bike. So it started off as a Yamaha 125, and then it was a PE 250, and then a Can-Am 400. And we'd lived on a farm that had hundreds of acres. So I was always out riding in the woods and along the fields. And for any racing that I did, it was just small towns around the farm and stuff that we would go race in some of the local tracks. And so it started that back in 7th grade. Had a bit of a gap for the military, for the Marine Corps, and then it was probably almost I don't know, about 20-year gap, but it was a good gap before I got back on another bike. And it was a Harley that I ended up getting on, and it was very unexpected. I walked into a dealership. They had just built this really beautiful dealership that looked like the factory, the Harley factory, and just walked in. I had no intention of buying a motorcycle, and one of the salesperson had come up to me and just said, "Hey, you looking for a bike?" I said, "Well, no, but says, well, what bike would you look at?" I said, well, Softail, because that's the only thing I can remember that that's my very first memory of riding motorcycles was on the back of my dad's Harley. And
Yep.
I was in kindergarten. I mean, that's how long ago it was. Um, and I just remember he would come to the Catholic school or St. John's Vianney School, and he would come pick me up, and the nuns were just like, "Oh, there's this big old Marine, putting his son on the back of the Harley, So
Mhm.
but it took a long time. But when I was at that dealership, that was the only thing I knew. It was the Sportster. And of course, by the time I was getting ready to leave, I had bought a Harley. And that was the first bike after 20 years was a little Harley Softail Deluxe. And I had called my mom and I told my mom, I said, "Hey, mom, um, dad's looking down on me saying, you son of a bitch." She's like, "Why? What's wrong?" I said, "I bought a Harley." And she immediately said, "No, no, no. He's saying you lucky son of a bitch."
Exactly.
And so I rode that for almost 4 years. And then, there's a race. You probably heard of it. There was a race called the Hoka Hay. And the year that I was looking to do it, it was from Key West or Key Largo, one of those keys, and it would go all the way up to Nome, Alaska. And I thought, hey, I can do an iron butt. I can do this. And I started looking for a motorcycle that would actually do it well because my Harley Sportster only had a small tank, and so I figured out how many times I'd actually have to stop for gas, and you're trying to get there to be first. And so
The older we get, the smaller tanks give us an excuse for those bladder races.
yeah.
I have a GSA with a 400-mile range at one time, 2010 GSA. Yeah, on road trips, I always had to stop long before the tank was done.
That was the whole, yeah, that's true, right? But I bumped in, I went to a dealership, and I mean, this is probably 12 years ago. I went into the dealership, and I told I was looking, at the big K 1600, just a big couch to ride on and make comfortable, and make it the most pleasant race that I could. And he said, "Well, why are you looking at this bike? Why wouldn't you want to look at a BMW GS Adventure?" I said, "A what?" And he said, he said a GS Adventure. And he pointed at one, and he said, Charlie, Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman went around the world on it. I hadn't a clue who they were talking about. And I just
Not a
looked.
Star Wars fan.
Yeah, yeah, well, I didn't remember that name. And then I just remember looking at it, and I thought, God, that's an ugly bike. But it wasn't long before I bought one, and
Right.
never did that Hoka Hay ride, but it was the introduction to the GS style and that off-road riding back down in Tennessee. I went for the first time, and that brought me back to the days when racing and being out up in Maine and in the woods, and it hasn't stopped since at that point. So
Right. So you went from that to, how did because Waylon Wayne's is in Ohio.
yeah, yep.
So how did you that start? And I will tell you, I've watched Matt McCourt did a great job filming the activities and events of this year's. And I since I can't ride off road anymore, I live vicariously through Matt. He's the same age as me and about my size, and is probably what I would look like if I was still riding a GSA. Only he's probably better at it than I would be. But it's fun to see what the guys are doing and where they take those bikes, and how did all that get started?
So part of that first GSA that I bought, 12 years ago, um, I bumped into a gentleman who was sitting in McDonald's, and I saw that his GSA outside. I figured I could see all his gear, and so I went over to start talking to him, and we became good friends. And he said to me that same year, he said, you come down to to Tennessee. He says, I'm doing a promotional video for a rally called March Moto Madness.
Mhm.
I said, all right, I'll come down. So we went down, and there was just a few individuals that we were riding and doing these, these interviews with, and it was the first time that I had gone off road since high school when I would, be on the dirt bikes. And that's where it really started. So the introduction of doing that video for March Moto Madness, that was my first rally that I went to, adventure rally that I went to. And at the time, I think it was just over 100 people, 120 maybe. Nowadays, they get numbers of, 700 that are there. And so when I, got out there, loving being out on the back roads and the trails and having that challenge. And then when I went back up to Ohio, I was like, well, where can I ride, my GSA? Where can I go ride? And it was Wayne National Forest down in Logan area. And so I went out there. I was like, all right, I bought my season's pass. I went down. Um, I had no idea what I was expecting. I had my side panniers on, hard cases on. I had my top box on. I was as wide as a little Volkswagen going through the trails. Um, and I remember,
You were in tractor mode.
yeah, definitely a tractor mode. And I remember just bumping into people and they were just in disbelief that I was out there with that bike. And of course, with this, with the side panniers and everything, it looked twice as big. Um, and by the time the day ended, both panniers had dents in them from hitting trees, and so that was my first experience of being in Wayne National Forest. And I did some videos when I would go back out, and friends reached out to me and they said, "Hey, you should do a rally." I was like, "Really? A rally?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "I'll call it, Whale and Wayne Weekend in response to March Moto Madness, MMM, so WWW. And the first time that I was out in Wayne National Forest, my engine was wailing, and that was the first thing that came to mind. So
That's
Whale and Wayne Weekend was came to be nearly 12. Well, they're coming up on 12 years now. And so the first year that we were there, I had 12 people, and we were the Dirty Dozen. That's what we called each other, the Dirty Dozen. And so now
I think I know some of those guys still.
yeah, I think you do. And it's only grown since then. It's become such a great, it's a, it's the best job that you'll ever love, I guess, is organizing something for everybody. And this year we officially had 512 attendees at the 11th annual Whale and Wayne Weekend.
That's phenomenal. When did you start doing the stuff with the kiddos? Because those
Uh,
are some of my favorite videos. Not, I haven't seen any from just this recent one, but the one from last year with the
yeah.
little ones in the mud pit and the dads with the ropes pulling them through and stuff. I mean, that was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the highlights of the weekend when we've got bleachers and grandstands that are down by the little track and stuff, and everybody comes down to see the kids doing the little trials course. I started that 4 years ago because the old location that we were at originally was a really small little campground, and we by year 7 we had totally outgrew that, and so. Luckily, I found the spot that we're in now, which is in Nelsonville, part of the Hocking College facility. They used to have a summer jazz festival, so it's well set up for campers, and the space is plentiful. And they help design and come out. The students in their heavy equipment course come out and help design and build the track every year. And so with that, with the room and the ability, I was like, well, we've got to get, bring this as some of the families into this and get the kids, the young kids involved, and once again promote our passion and continue to have this grow, hopefully. And so that was the first year. We did it 4 years ago, and I think we've had between 12 and 16 kids every year to come out and ride or participate in the trials, and it's just great to see.
It's fantastic. I bet it continues to grow to a point where you're gonna have to put a cap on attendance one of these years.
Yeah, we're getting up there. We're getting pretty close. The grounds can handle that, that 512 that we had this year. you just don't feel like it's that many people that are there,
Right.
because we've got that much room. But you don't want to lose that feel of the community and the closeness that it seems to have for everybody that's there. And so we're getting pretty close to having that true cap of where we're going to be at, and that's it.
Fantastic. So, over time in your riding, you've really combined your passion for riding and the things that you do with the charitable works and the Ride It Forward and the motorcycle relief project, these types of things. How did that come about? And talk a little bit about your relationship with Mike and the guys at the Motorcycle Relief Project. And you know, I was not in the military. I did the government contractor thing and worked with a lot of military guys, that were active duty at the time. I was doing network stuff with them. And it holds a place that's near and dear to my heart. And I know several guys that project has helped a lot. So how did you get involved with those guys?
Well, so the Ride It Forward came about in 2018, and I had participated in the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, and when everybody gets all dappered up
Every
and they
year?
usually meet every year. Yep.
12 years straight I've been on that.
See that it's a great ride, and it's there's good causes for men's health.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I felt that was missing was the engagement. I mean, it was more about everybody coming in dressing up than it was about the charity or something. And so I
Right.
felt that something was missing there. And so the Ride It
Well,
Forward,
before you go on,
yeah.
just for those that are listening, the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride, it's Movember Foundation, and it's a 1 day a year fundraiser all over the world. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not a lot about the events and the chair. It's really about that 1 day of fundraising and how they do that. And one of the folks I'm going to talk to, you may know him, Grant Wood is the North Texas Adventure Rider president and has been host for Distinguished Gentleman Ride for many years. And I want to get him on to actually talk more and go much deeper into that subject. But since you brought them up, I figured I'd kind of let people know what that was about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great fun ride. And what I wanted to try to do is try to focus something on a local level. And so back in 2018, the concept of the Ride It Forward Day of Charity came about, and developing that, started reaching out in 2019 to all these different BMW dealerships across the country. I worked with them to either have them tell me who they support locally as a charity, or if they needed me to find a charity to help. And so that's what I did at that point. I think we had 32, 33, something like that, charities, local, smaller charities that more than likely people wouldn't have known about. And so we set that up. The goal was similar to the Distinguished Gentleman's, where you would go to a location, or this is a dealership. You have a little continental breakfast, and then you'd go on a ride somewhere as a group, and then at the end of that ride, you would go to one or two, depending on which one you chose, a charity, and you would see it. You'd get to the charity, you'd see it, you feel it, you touch it, you get involved. Whatever that charity was doing, you actually really truly saw what your donations went to. And then after that, everybody would get together at, a little restaurant, pub, or whatever. And that was the Ride It Forward Day of Charity. Well, I did my I did my launch for this. It was the first ride that we were doing was in I think it was June of 2020, and I launched it. I did this promotional video in February, right around Valentine's. And I was mentioning how love was in the air, and we had this wonderful thing that people could get involved in. And so that was the launch in February. And then in March of 2020, this thing that nobody had ever heard about called COVID came.
Yep.
And it just shut that whole, as everybody knows, it shut everything down. And so for 2020, that whole event got shut down. For 2021, the event got shut down. And we tried to get it back up. But in 2023, 2021, 22, and it was very slow. We only had a couple dealerships that participated at that time. So I think everybody was still coming off of the COVID, isolation and trying to get back into a routine. But that's how that Ride It Forward came. And continuing to build on that, when we thought of doing the sweepstakes, we had some ideas about creating a sweepstakes that was this Beamer Bonanza that had the BMW X7 and a toy hauler and then a BMW motorcycle. And the two charities that I thought of to benefit from that was the Motorcycle Relief Project, who I've known, Mike Bobbitt, and even going back to Tom when Tom was the Tom Larson started that years ago, and so to get involved with them because of my military background, because of my family's military background, third generation Marine, sixth Marine in the family, so I recognize the need. Family suffers from PTSD from the services, and so that was something very strong and a connection for me. And so it was something that I wanted to connect with, and because of friendships and knowing what they were putting together for the veterans, I that's a strong passion for me. And then the other one was the BMW Motorcycle Owners Foundation. So I partnered with them. They've been great supporters of Whale and Wayne, and to come out to support and give a hand, and we do our beer garden each year to raise some money through donations to both charities actually this year. So it's
I understand Charles Buchanan is a good bartender.
yeah, we can't figure out if he is Woody or Sam Malone, but I'm going with Woody first there.
We'll hear about this later.
Oh, sure. Him and Matt. Yeah, they're quite the bartenders. Not sure they were out there again this year, but it's a lot of fun. And obviously the charities are something special to work with, and to see the good that they all do, and actually with the foundation and their training grants that they provide. I've seen it firsthand, especially at Whale and Wayne, for all those that are doing training to have the opportunity to get to use some of that grant money, and safety, advance their skills, and increase their passion for riding, I guess.
So the Bonanza's coming up in December. What's the closing date on buying those raffle tickets?
God, you've got like 2 weeks, I think. That's it.
That's it. Yeah. So I'll definitely put the link in on this video, and folks, it's and I keep telling Chad this, but you guys can donate, but I've got mine in, and you're putting way too many miles on my truck and trailer at this point, but that's okay. So where do you go from here? You got the Bonanza, what's next on the I know you're talking about the Trans-America Trail.
Yeah.
Are you going to do any kind of benefit or charity thing wrapped around that, or is this a Chad, I'm going to take a break and clear my mind ride?
Yeah, you mentioned doing the BDRs. I've had this personal goal of completing all the BDRs. The first year that I did that, my BDR challenge, there was only those 10 actually that year. There was just 10 BDRs. They're up to 13 now. So
Big Ben is opening.
Yeah. Well, Big Ben, the BDR X Big Ben. So, and then there's the BDR X Chattanooga, Chattahoochee, something like that. So I haven't done any of the X trails. I've only done the main BDRs. And so that first year, it's something I had planned to do. And initially, you're right. One of the years I was planning with a friend to do all the BDRs that year back to back in 1 month. And at that year, there was only 7, but still, that's a lot of the BDRs. There was still 7 of them. And, this excuse and that excuse and this reason and that reason, it just never happened. And every year I said, well, I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something. I want to do something on the BDR. I want to ride them. And I said it every year. And there was one year in particular that really struck home. And it was the catalyst. It was the kick in the ass for me to get out and do something. That year, I had lost three high school friends and an old fiance. And I said, well, that's it. If not now, then when? Because we can keep every year we can say, oh, next year I'm going to do something next year. I'm going to do it. And it's easy to come up with the excuses not to do it. So that was it. I just said that was it. This is what I'm going to do. I put it out on social media and I reached out to some friends that I knew and ended up riding that year all 10 of the BDRs nearly back to back. In between the first eight that I did the first eight back to back, then did Whale and Wayne. I came home and did the rally and played host to that. And then a week after Whale and Wayne, I went with a few more friends down to the Mid-Atlantic and then did Northeast with another buddy of mine up there. And that was it, all 10. And so within 111 days, I had completed all of them and rode to each one. So
Right.
that was the passion for that. And so, I share that story because hopefully it's a little inspirational for people because I think we can all relate to that fact that we have these bucket lists that we want to do and we keep putting it off. And, my dad has had 2 heart attacks by the time he was my age already. And so, it's the old Nike thing, just do it. And so for next year, it's going to be the TAT. That I've heard so much about it. I've seen videos and people doing it. So I want to do the coast to coast, east to west coast, and then when I get out to the west coast, I want to hit the Touratech rally, the Touratech West rally. I haven't done that one. I hear great things about it. And then next year, the BDR is launching their 14th BDR, the Southeastern BDR. And so I plan to hit that one as well at some time. And so that's more for fun, enjoyment, personal, personal. I won't wrap that around, but there's definitely some projects coming next year besides the 12th annual Whale and Wayne rally. The Dirty Dozen edition is what we're calling next year. So
Absolutely. Sounds great. So we'll see you in Tennessee next year.
No.
I'm going to be in the middle of your TAT ride.
Yeah, that's right when it is because the Touratech one is always around the MOA rally, and
they're a week apart.
Yep, and I, being an employee for a couple years and being on the board, and I was always required to be at the national rally, and so
then it was work.
Then it was work. Yeah, exactly. It was yes, it was a lot of work. And this year,
you and I have spent some of those work days together at rallies.
We definitely have. So this year I've got the opportunity to go out west. So Go out west, young man, and I will be heading out there to try to enjoy the TAT and the Touratech rally.
Well, I will say you're a much better videographer than I am. It was a lot more experience. So I look forward to seeing the videos and the follow-ups as you go along and the challenges and what happens with TAT. And if you talk to Mike Bobbitt, tell him I am going to be reaching out because I would really like to get him on here to talk about the Motorcycle Relief Project.
Oh, I bet he would love to. Absolutely.
We don't have a lot of viewers yet, but the better people we get on, because it definitely won't be me, the more we get to do.
Well, you better pick better, guest hosts than like me, because you'll never get more people. So.
Yes, but I know people that know people, so it's the degrees of separation that we all live with.
Yeah, Kevin. Well, Kevin Bacon's my neighbor, so.
Now, if it was Neil Peart back in his riding,
there you go. Shouldn't that be the separation for the motorcycle community, Neil Peart or something? How far?
Somebody posted a picture not long ago on one of the BMW MOA social media sites, and it was Neil Peart sitting in the middle of his drum set. And his drums went 360 degrees. Yeah. He literally swiveled. And somebody made a comment about, why are we putting a rock and roll band Rush's drummer on a motorcycle site? Well, the responses were a detailed history of the things that motorcycling did for Neil Peart, the book that he wrote, the things he did for the motorcycling community as a whole. And I'm sure the person that wrote the original comment was like, oh, I didn't know any of this.
Yeah, it's getting back involved with riding, if you will, 12 years ago. I mean, it actually more because it was the Harley. So let's say 15 years ago.
Yep.
getting back on that bike and having that wind therapy is made a tremendous difference. It's literally changed my life because I came from a financial background, and now it's everything I do now is much more related to the motorcycle community and riding, and it's so much more enjoyable, than the years that I worked in New York City. Much more enjoyable.
There's a big BMW MOA chapter in New York City.
So I didn't even ride back then,
Yeah.
so I was just like, I went to had a minute to ride when I was working in the city. So
Absolutely. Well, it's been great talking with you. Thanks for doing this, and
Mike,
we'll talk soon.
definitely. Well, definitely get together. We'll do some riding again here soon, huh?
Sounds good. Keep the rubber side on the road, man.
Deal. The best
Have
to
a
you.
good one. Bye bye.